So today, we're going to go through the writing. So first and foremost, what do you need to make on the star?
35.
37, 75. What's the highest you can get on a writing? 8, because the highest score is 4 times 2 rated equals 8. What separates a 1 from a 2? You remember?
No, I don't.
A thesis statement. A thesis statement, right? A 2 from a 3 is that it's a thesis statement plus support. Okay? What is your support? Your 2 academic paragraphs. So today I'm going to run real fast through these so that we can kind of figure it out. Okay. So there are videos and stuff under today's lesson. If you want to go back and look at those for reference, I take you through the whole process of writing a STAAR essay. Because remember, a STAAR essay is slightly different from your everyday essay. All right. So, like I said, so you have these 2 assignments that need to be completed by tonight. They should be easy 100s. And then there's the lesson right there that has the videos in it. But we're going to go ahead and jump right in so that I can make sure you guys have a good understanding. So here's what the prompt is going to look like. What's the first thing I do?
Look at the right thing.
Yes.
The right.
Good job. Okay, where's my prompt?
Where it says right.
Where it says right. Okay, now I know where my prompt is. What do I underline?
The whole thing.
Everything after,
Right. Or,
everything after on.
oh.
Okay, then I'm gonna cross out if and put, whether and put if. Okay, so now it says if it's better to succeed individually or as a team. Okay, now I'm gonna create my for and against, right? Okay, so what would be the first part? How would I turn it into a because statement?
Because
Now I start with because. It is better.
to work individually.
Now use the prompt. It is better. I'm going to show you this one.
To
To succeed.
individually.
Succeed individually. Because.
That's what I meant.
Okay. What would be the other argument?
It is better to succeed.
It is better to succeed as part of a team because now, am I gonna pick the one that I like the best or the one I can write more about? Write more about. Okay, out of these 2, which do we think we can write more about? Well, which would give us more examples? The 4 to succeed individually. Because remember, I need to find an example outside of myself and an example within my own mind. So which one? The 4, everybody says 4? How many of you say 4 individually? How many of you say as a team? Okay. It is better to succeed individually or as part of a team.
Individually.
Okay, so a lot of y'all say individually. Just for these purposes, if that's what we're gonna go with, okay. So this is what you're gonna do. It is better to succeed individually because why? Give me some reasons. I need at least 3.
Individually, because you don't gotta worry about nobody else.
You don't have to worry about anyone else. Oh, the only limit is yourself. Okay. What's another one? Okay, nobody can what? Okay, nobody can take credit for what you did. Okay. Now, Then I'm gonna sit there and think, which one can I write the most about? Which one do we think would sound the best and have the best examples? So you don't have to worry about anyone else. The only limit is yourself, and nobody can take credit. Now, here's the other thing. Some of these can actually be worked into, like, let's say if I was to choose this one, right? The only limit is yourself. Why? Because you don't have to worry about anybody else except yourself, and nobody can take credit for what you did, right? So you can easily do that. I'm just gonna pick this one, right? So what is my thesis statement?
It is better to succeed as an individual.
It is better to succeed individually.
Because no one.
The only limit,
It's yourself.
the only limit will be yourself, right? Is that a clear thesis statement?
Yes.
Absolutely. But my introduction is not finished, because remember, a persuasive introduction is the ACA plus the thesis. You guys remember what an ACA is? Acknowledgement of the counter argument. Well, what's the counter argument? It's the one I didn't choose.
Oh, so
It'll always be the one you didn't choose. And here's the easiest way to set that up. Okay. Some people think, argue, say, will argue that it is better to succeed as part of a team. And this is where you're going to get a little fancy. Semicolon, however, comma, I disagree. It is better to succeed individually. Yes, always start with the ACA, acknowledge it. Some people say this, I disagree. This is what I'm going to argue. Make sense? Okay, 2 sentences. That's your introduction. That's it. If you want to get a little fancy, okay, you could sit there and somebody said, well, there's a lot of succeed, right? You could easily say it is better to achieve success individually, right? You can, that's when you can start to like get fancy with it if you want to. But this is the foundation. If they're looking, remember, they don't have a lot of time to check your papers, right? They're like, where's my thesis? Boom, check. Does it answer the prompt? Sure does. Automatic 2. Okay, and then they also have the account, they're acknowledging the counter argument, right? So they have a full thesis. So then what am I going to do down here after this? This is my introduction. I'm going to have a global, which is outside of myself, right? That's when you use the example, remember? You're going to have a topic sentence, right? And it can be as simple as one example of why it's better to succeed individually is, and then you give the example, right? Then you're going to explain that to me in about 3 sentences. Remember your academic paragraph. And then you're going to wrap it up, right? Then you're going to have a personal one. But you need to link it. Just like example blah, I have my own experiences with succeeding individually. And then you're going to give me a story in 3 sentences. This is what happened, and this happened next, and this is how it ended. Is that hard? Okay, what is your conclusion? Your conclusion is 1 sentence.
Wait, really?
But then you do thesis again.
You restate your thesis, right? But you you restate your thesis, but you also include what you did, right? So and so, let's say, who's somebody that succeeded individually by themselves? Let's just, huh? Sure, okay. Sure, Wolverine. So, conclusion. Conclusions can be something as simple as both Wolverine and I stand as examples of why it's better to succeed as a team. Have I wrapped up my stuff? Yeah, you did. You wrapped it up and you restated it.
It's only a single sentence.
Single sentence. How many lines do you have?
26.
26. Here's the thing with the STAAR essay. Do not overthink it, okay? Is this a very simplistic essay? Absolutely. But you're hitting check marks, right? My thesis, my support, do I understand it? Yes. Conclusion, yes. Right? Is it organized properly? Yes. When you get super fancy, then you can jump to a 4, okay? Super fancy would be when you start changing out some of your words, when you use different types of sentences, right? Those flipped sentences with the commas, those will get you to 4s, okay? But even if you have a simplistic essay, that gets you to a 3, and that's passing. That's a 6. You're passing, okay? It's simple. Even as somebody, I can write papers all day long, all day long. I can write a 10-page paper probably within an hour, okay? And it'll get an A. But even I will sometimes now create because statements and then use that as my foundation to create a fancier thesis statement, okay? So after this is all over, I'm going to show you how you can use this to jump off into essays in English 3 and 4, okay? So this is very basic. Simple?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay? Let's do it one more time. Because these are release STAAR prompts. Okay. Okay, what's the first thing I do?
Look at the prompt.
Uh,
No, I'll tell you. Find the right.
What's the first thing I always do?
Scratch off the.
Yes,
top.
avoid your trap, okay? Now what do I do? Where's my prompt? Right. What do I underline?
If
Everything after,
on.
everything after on. If it says whether, change it to if. So what's my essay supposed to be about? If a person can choose to be happy. Okay. For, against. Now I need to change it into a because statement for. How can I change that into a because statement?
I think that you can have.
Don't get fancy. Just use the words from here.
A person can. Is it decide?
And choose
Choose happiness to be happy.
to be happy.
Because.
Happy because. Okay. The against is
A person can't choose. to
a
be
person
happy,
cannot.
cannot choose to be happy because.
Yep. Is that hard?
I don't think.
Okay. Because. Which one do we think we'd find the most examples for? Which one do we think we can find the most examples for?
I think.
They can choose to be happy or they can't choose to be
I
happy?
think again. Can't.
Can't?
Can't.
Okay.
There's a lot of good stuff.
Okay. So a person cannot choose to be happy because, and even before I go into brainstorming, what do I now have? I have my ACA, don't I?
Yeah.
Some might think, and I don't want to be redundant, right? So what's another word for person?
People. People.
Okay,
Human.
people can choose to be happy. However, I disagree. You can say I disagree, or you can also say I believe the opposite. I would argue blah blah. Right? Anything that does that. Okay. What are some reasons a person can't choose?
To be happy.
Mhm.
Um,
If something happens. Okay, so they have no control over what happens to them, right? Okay. They have no control over what happens to them. So what is PTSD?
Post-traumatic stress.
No, I know what it is. What is that considered?
Mental disorder.
Mhm, right? So, because they might suffer from mental disorders, right? Or psychological problems, right? Is there one more that we might be able to find?
I was gonna say trauma, but that could be another.
Yeah, but you can still write it. Anything that comes to your mind, I want you to write it. The reason I want you to write it is how many times have you been thinking of stuff and you're like, oh, that's a good idea. But then another thought comes in real fast and you're like, what was I just thinking? So write everything because there's nothing saying that you can say, oh, that's way off, right? So what's one that we could have good examples for?
Mental disorders.
Mental disorders, right? And in that mental disorders, you can talk about PTSD, which in reality does acknowledge this one, right?
And also has trauma linked to it.
Mhm. Or you could even say they might suffer from mental disorders due to trauma. Okay, so now I have some people think that some might think that people can choose to be happy. However, I disagree. A person cannot choose to be happy because they might suffer from mental disorders due to trauma, period. Do I have my thesis? Yeah, it's a very clear thesis at that. Does it answer the prompt? Sure does. So then my global can be somebody outside that we know that has suffered from something like that. And there's examples all over the place, right? And then for your personal, that's when you're gonna have somebody close to you. Now, does your personal one have to be true? No, they don't know you, right? If I sit there and talk about my Uncle Steve, who suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder from, World War II, they don't know that. Miss Garcia doesn't have an uncle named Steve, right? They don't know. And then when I wrap it up, for the conclusion, that's when you would say that who's somebody famous or somebody outside of us that we know has post-traumatic stress. Huh? Ariana Grande, right? Because she went through that craziness at her concert where the guy was stabbing people, right? So you could easily say for your conclusion, Ariana Grande and my Uncle Steve serve as perfect examples of why people who suffer from mental disorders due to trauma cannot choose to be happy. I just wrapped up everything my whole essay was about and I concluded it. Make sense?
Mhm.
You guys think you guys can do that? All right. So do you want to do one more example or you want to leave it at that?
I think we're good. We're good. We're good.
Okay, so what you guys need to do now is there is 2 mini assignments. You don't have to do any writing or anything. You're going to be selecting stuff. Get that done. Tomorrow we're going to do a Kahoot, kind of relax before we have to do the STAAR on Thursday. On Thursday, make sure that you get here on time. Make sure you know what room you're supposed to go to. Please bring a snack, a drink. I also recommend bringing gum so you can stay awake. All right, make sure you have your ID. They will not let you in to do the testing if you don't have your ID. If you don't have an ID, then you need to get a temporary one. Sound good?
Yeah.
All right, get to work.